All right, we are live. This is the 52nd episode of the monthly market update where Dean and I go over some real estate statistics in Hawaii, and we'll also be covering some things that are happening nationally in the news.
In Hawaii, there's so much to do. There's hula, there's surfing, and real estate too. We just two local guys with so much to say. So listen to the Real Estate Braddahs today.
All right, so Dean, why don't you introduce yourself and see if you can move the slides on your own?
Yeah. I believe you gave me control. Yep. My name is Dean Ueda. I'm a former CPA, now a real estate professional over in Honolulu, Hawaii. Yep. You can reach me. My website is realestateofhawaii.com. That's probably the easiest way to reach out to me. I also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/realestateofhawaii, where I post about 5 minute nuggets every week of value add. Can range anything from buying, selling a home to even just home maintenance, or even things that I think are interesting to help, that helps me as an individual, as a person, family, whatever. So I always like to have fun things, being that we drive the channel, we can put whatever we want, so that's always great fun. But um, as we like to start off, I start off the first half and we talk about the Hawaii real estate news. Jumping into We're starting at the beginning of June, and summer is here. My children are on summer break. Last week was the last week of school for them, and this week is break. Next week they are starting summer school. So this week we're having a lot of fun. You can see today we did the Diamond Head hike. I don't know, Lane, is the last time you did that one, but it's great for Kama'aina because it's actually free. Parking is free, and access to the hike is free. For the tourists, it actually costs quite a pretty penny just to do the hike. I don't know when the last time you did it, Lane, but they actually have a few improvements in terms of they upgraded some of the side trail. Instead of going up the 100 stairs, you can go up a side trail to get to the top. That's helpful. And in the meantime, we played tourist. We at a restaurant, local Japanese restaurant called Sekiya's. Lane, have you eaten there recently?
No, I don't get out very often. I do order a lot of pre-made meals and Whole Foods
It's
delivery, but no restaurants.
it's an old local Japanese restaurant. I haven't eaten there in 20 years, so I went back, and uh, right here's a picture of the traditional Japanese breakfast that my other half got. And then tomorrow I'm gonna go check out Sweetland Farm over in Wailua. We're gonna go check out the goat farm out there. Again, us playing tourist, I think you can feed the baby goats, and I don't know if you can milk them and try some goat milk. But
But I've been
anyway,
there. I've
you
been there.
really?
Yeah, you you can actually buy the goats. So ask
Okay,
them how much it costs to buy one.
okay,
But
okay.
I think you gotta buy two because they get lonely or something like that.
Okay, I don't think my association here would allow goats, but I can check. I mean, summer, yeah, the start of summer, start of seasonality. A lot of times, that's when the real estate um, sales tend to go up in a typical year. So jumping into that, we want to get into real estate prices, the median home prices for the month of May. Again, Honolulu Board of Realtors statistics won't come out till the sixth day of the following month. So, as you can see here, we have single family median single price at 1,155,000. It's about 19% jump from the same time last year. It's kind of close to record breaking. We'll see what the official number is on the 6th. But I mean, it's same story, different month in the from the standpoint of we're still at these record highs. And for condo townhouses, we have 515,000, and that's a 13% increase from the same time last year. Again, these prices are kind of bordering around the all-time highs, and so we'll see if they break anything. But as you know, this long-term trend, as you can see, it's same story. We haven't seen much change in that, and why is that? A lot of it's because of our supply, right? So supply and demand. On the supply side, we still have 1.3 months of inventory for single family homes and 1.6 months of inventory for condo and townhouses. So, you know,
Have you seen any? So interest rates have been going up. Have you seen an affordability of people has been going down, or what they can afford? Have you seen any like properties drop contract because the borrower couldn't get enough loan
yeah,
proceeds? Or
so I have had calls, not for my transaction, but we've gotten calls where we put in offers and my buyers didn't win, and one of the scenarios was they called and they said, oh, you know, are you guys still interested in the house? Because the first position backed out. And then so when we asked why did they back out, in one scenario the situation was exactly that, interest rates. um, Another situation, similar call, you know, the first position backed out. Their buyer backed out because and this is maybe a month or two ago, but it was because they were getting nervous with the international affairs with, you know, the Ukraine and that. So I thought that was really interesting for that scenario. um, we are seeing price decreases, from the standpoint of, you know, the listings, and also, you know, a lot of times, you know, a year or 2 years ago, we're getting on especially on the single family side, we're getting a lot of, you know, 20, 30, even hear stories about like 50 offers on a single home. Now I think we're seeing more like 3 to 5. And again, it depends on the situation, it depends on the location, depends on the type of property. But um, I think the interest rate rising has caused a little bit of a, I wouldn't call it a correction, but just maybe like a stir up, because like someone that was looking for that $1 million house and are tapping in and leveraging out, maxing out what they can buy at a million. The interest rates creep up 50 bips, and now you're only like 975, 950 is your buying power, and so now you're looking at a different um, type of inventory or price point. So now it's changing your search a little bit. So I think that caused a little bit of adjustment for the buyer side on the demand side. But I'll show you on another slide. You know, for the month of May, it kind of stabilized. It was creeping up, and not creeping, it jumped up a whole bunch. But for the month of May, for the most part, it was pretty stable in terms of interest rates. Yeah. So yeah, to your question, we did see some. I don't know if you want to call it a hiccup or whatnot, but on the buyer side, we were seeing some of that. But then again, you know, days on market, we haven't seen much change. Single family and condos, 11 days on market is the median for both. Yeah, and that's actually a jump up from 10% for single family, and condos is down 15%.
but days on market is an indicator that's gonna definitely lag all this type of stuff we're
Yeah,
talking about a bit.
yeah, that's true. And as you can see here, though, I mean, this is really same story for a while now. Yeah, and then this is the slide I wanted to talk. We were mentioning is, I think it was as of yesterday, 5.47 was a 30-year fixed rate. But if you can see here, for that, for most of May, it hasn't done much compared to, you know, the last 3 months prior. Um, so yeah, Lane, I don't know if you're getting these questions, but I seem to be getting them a lot of time now from my buyers, sellers, friends, family, um, tennis parents, whomever. You know, it's like, how's the market? You know, are we facing a correction? I don't know if you listen to a lot of podcasts, but I know there are a lot of pundits are actually trying to address that question, in terms of, you know, then where is there a safe haven to put our investments, alternative investments, or whatever you want to. Um, and this slide coincidentally, Lane, like your questions, listing, we are seeing some price corrections popping up. And again, to your questioning and interest rates causing the correction, I think we talked about it where, for the month of May, for the most part, is pretty stable. A lot of um, another trend that we're seeing too is, I think, on Oahu, the good thing is that, we still have a lot of owner occupants that are trying to buy. And that helps a lot because, when the interest rates go up, and prices are going up, you're for the investors, then what happens is your cap rates are getting squeezed, right? Your interest, unless your rent rates are going up proportionately, then you're gonna have that cap rate squeeze on the investment side, right? And I'm sorry, the cap rates can squeeze, but if the interest rates go up, then now your margins are getting squeezed, is what I meant to say. Yeah. So if we have a lot of owner occupants, they won't be they will be affected, but maybe not to the extent that an potential investor maybe who has to use leverage. So we are seeing more cash offers winning, or a lot of large down payments, and a lot of owner occupants. Yeah, and as I mentioned, instead of seeing 20 to 30 offers, we're seeing a little bit less, but hopefully multiple offer situations. And again, that's an anecdotal, from my standpoint, talking to with my current experience as well as talking to other agents in the industry. So,
Rather have your anecdotes than some skewed data.
yeah, one of the uh, ec- economists that I like to talk to is Paul Brubaker, and we're supposed to have him in July for on the Home and Border Realtors for the Leeward Regional Group that I volunteer for. So hopefully I'll get some of the information and share that. I love hearing from Paul. He's on the mainland right now. So as always, we like to talk about the scam of the month. And so this month, um, I guess researchers at Fortinet found a sophisticated phishing email sent to a Hungarian diplomat, right? So in the email, criminals disguised themselves by using the first and last name of an employee at the diplomat's IT department. So in this case, the diplomat knew it kind of sounded suspicious, so he reached out to the employee to see if it was legit or not, which is what you should do. But this is, an example of what's called spear phishing, what they're doing now. So spear phishing is when you target a single person or department that has information that the cyber criminals are looking for. Yeah. And in these attacks, the cyber criminals do research on that person or department to figure out, who do they communicate through frequently, and then they send a message to that person and trying to pretending to be that person, and trying to get more information. So as always, it sound like a broken record, but don't open attachments or click on links in emails that you're not expecting. Check the email headers to see if you recognize the sender or the other recipients, and reach out to the person who allegedly sent the mail by phone or in person, just to ensure that that's a legitimate email. So that's the scam of the month, spear phishing. Instead of throwing everything to the wall and see what sticks, now they're targeting somebody specific, doing a little bit more due diligence and trying to get some hits that way, instead of you're trolling with a lure versus bring the big net, right? So I wanted to end my portion of today talking about safety and security. So one thing I want to talk about is home safety and smoke detectors. So did you know that your chance of dying in a home fire is cut by 55% if your home contains smoke alarms? And average smoke alarms last for 10 years, and usually they put a date on the smoke alarms, either on the top, so you have to take it down, or on the sides. Also, it's a good idea to replace your batteries twice a year. So maybe one recommendation was doing it during daylight savings and daylight standard times when they switch. twice a year sounds kind of often, but Lane, I don't know about you, but it's funny because you know with these Zoom calls, I've had Zoom calls with clients, friends, family, but I think two or three times I've been on the call and I've actually heard the smoke alarm in the background beeping. I don't know, I forget. I think it was a vendor, and I was kind of like I didn't want to mention anything, but hopefully they're watching this podcast and they'll see and change their battery. But it was funny because like it was like two time 2 weeks in a row, and I heard that same beep. And then as now that I think about it, I should bring it up to them because maybe they can't hear it.
Beep.
Huh?
Well, I don't know. When I was in college, that thing would be going off all the time. Nobody would do anything about it.
But I don't know. Does it? I couldn't even focus. It was hard because I was like, does he hear it? But anyway, so some maintenance tips. If there is dust, the compressed air cans that we use for our keyboards, that's always a good thing to use to blow off the dust. If there's grime buildup, use a microfiber cloth to clean it up. And the main thing is don't ignore the chirp because to me that 55% number is a very alarming, get it, alarming statistic that we should pay attention to. I also wanted to talk about home security. And these days with technology, home security is getting so much cheaper. So some statistics again for you guys is 2.5 million burglaries in the US in 2021. You know, 17% of US homes have security systems, and if you're not that 70%, you're three times more likely of being robbed. So another thing is, it said 34% of burglars enter through the front door. Point being is that's a good place to put an alarm. And one of the cheapest alarms that I found was your Alexa. So um, I don't know. I have an Alexa Echo, and actually I have three or four of them. But if you are to get the Alexa Guard app, and when before you leave, you say, Alexa, I'm leaving. Oh, wait, mine is turning on. What happens is it'll become like a parrot. So if it hears it'll actively be listening things for things. So if it hears a loud noise or alarm go off, it will take a 10-second record of it, and then it'll send it to your phone. I believe is how that Alexa Guard app works. So I mean, shoot, the Echo Dot is like $20, I think. So talk about a really cheap um, alarm system. And again, this is not to replace a legitimate system, but point being is you can find really cheap alternatives out there if you want to. Another thing is that a majority of intruders say that they would leave immediately if they hear a security alarm go off. I don't know about you, Lane, but I've visited a lot of homes, either listings or even friends that have that ring alarm and doorbell. And CNN has said that that's the best security system for 2021. And it's kind of neat because the ring alarm, besides the camera, it also has audio. Yeah, so you can hear from your phone, and you can hear what's being said outside or is even in the house. So I think, I mean, something not to ignore, especially with technology being so reasonably priced nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go cheapo mode, it's free. Just buy the equipment. But I think it's like $100 to get it hooked up with the network.
Yeah.
Top of that.
So why not, man? But yeah, just to end with a quick fun quote from Benjamin Graham, the intelligent investor. Before you invest, you must ensure that you have realistically assessed your probability of being right and how you will react to the consequences of being wrong. So I like that quote, especially now as I'm looking for places to invest in. I like that quote. But anyway, something to think about.
All right. So, if people haven't checked out my podcast, you can go to simplepassivecashflow.com. Check it out there. We also put all these podcasts that Dean and I do. I think it's under Braddahs real estate Hawaii is I think how you find it. But people have been listening to it, Dean. They may
I
not
have.
like our YouTube version, but they like the audio version.
Oh, really?
Unless it's you listening. But
That.
hope not.
No, it's not.
But I'm gonna be going through some headlines here. If you guys want to check out my book, The Journey to Simple Passive Cash Flow, check it out on Amazon. But first thing first, I put this in here to tick Dean off. So Boeing's moving their headquarters from Chicago to Arlington, Virginia. So what is this, like 50th reason to not invest in Chicago, Illinois?
I sold Chicago, Lane. I sold it. You cannot rag me anymore. It's.
Okay, okay. We will stop. We will stop. Turn off that Google alert for Chicago sucks articles. John Burns Consulting says to be on the lookout for more build to rent projects. Prepare for higher density zoning. I don't know if this is happening in Hawaii where they're allowing higher build in certain areas. I know that it's big on like California. They just allowed that, but with the affordability issues, that's really the only way you can kind of release some of that pressure is allow more dense building in places that were once single family only
Well,
places.
well, the biggest news is kind of unrelated. Is how they're changing the short-term rental laws.
Oh, what's going on with that?
It's now, is it 90 days? Is it?
So
It's
what
it
was it
it
prior
was
to?
a month.
Oh, so it's gotten even worse then.
It's gotten worse, and then you have to do. I mean, anything less than that, you're paying the transient accommodation tax, which is crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. Haha. Airbnb, VRBO. You had your chance, but then now it's like it's worse. it's
yeah.
it's
No, and
worse.
it wasn't them though. It wasn't them. I think it was the government, trying to protect the hotel industry is what the vibe I kind of
Yeah.
got.
Well,
Yeah.
not only here in Hawaii, but like a lot of other places across even the mainland. Like in all like the tourist sensitive areas, like you don't see any Airbnbs in a lot of these places
Oh,
because they're
really?
just not really allowed. And then now, like for an Airbnb owner, you got to actually pay the same taxes and fees that the hotels have to. So it's like, I mean, all the costs get passed down to the consumer. So it's like not really too much of a price differential.
And it's interesting because I think it was talking to hearing the economist, and he's saying, when you look at the amount of short-term rentals that were constructed in the last 40 years, and it really hasn't gone up that much, and so I think that the point to that was like having these Airbnbs. In fact, I think Lane, you posted something about that too, about an article saying, these Airbnbs don't actually hinder or hurt the hotel industry in many cases as some people perceive. But I don't know. I guess we going off on tangent here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it goes after the a different type of travel
yeah,
seeker.
exactly. And then, but again, there's a lot of other things, like there's political things involved in this whole. I think it's Bill
Yeah.
41, and
What
so
I do see too is like from the investor side, a lot of unsophisticated mom pop investors are starting to get into short-term rentals because you can't make long-term rentals, and that's like shows how you and I are getting old, right? Like short-term, long-term rentals don't cash flow anymore. Like, well, at one time they did, but not now. So these guys, they have to do short-term rentals to get any ounce of cash flow. And it's like, hey, dude, if there's a pandemic, you're screwed. Like that's why we did long-term rentals back in the day
right.
because you always need that type of stuff where short-term is
So,
discretionary.
interesting thing too. We talk about that as having um, as actually a possible. I know there's a few people who are actually renting out single family homes on the outskirts of Waikiki, like the Kamaki area, nice units, and they would be due like 30 days. And I think some of it was because of COVID, where people could work remotely, so they would move to Hawaii for a month, work remotely for a month in in a nice house close to Waikiki or the beach, and they would be totally willing to pay, some crazy, 4, 5, 10 grand a month just for a month to stay in this. Um, Back then was not considered short term, but so owners were able to get some pretty good um, ROE, I guess, short term until this bill passed. Because now when you're at 90, that kind of really changes things up, yeah.
Yeah. But what weren't people? They just put it up on the websites for 90 days, whatever. But then when the people get there, they're like, nah, 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 you can just move out whenever you want, right?
Just
And
cancel it.
then that's what's happened. That's the workaround, which
Yeah, but I
that's how
think this
Hawaii
Bill
people are,
41,
right?
right. But I think this Bill 41 is trying to clog up those loopholes in
Yeah,
terms of
but then again, it's like, is anybody even going to enforce this thing? Now we're not condoning anybody doing illegal activity, duh,
exactly.
on this podcast, YouTube video. But I think that's always like it's always like an empty enforcement, right?
Yeah. Well, supposedly, like these, even the rules that passed enforced a year and 2 years ago, I think. What apparently the short-term laws were exist in existence for like 20 years. It's just that nobody was enforcing them. So when they brought these laws back, or they're now letting the public um, be the enforcers, I guess was the theory behind it. Um, and the other thing is like not allowing Airbnb and VRBO to do it unless they have the proper permits, right? That was the biggest thing I think too.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is an opinion show, but I'm not a big fan of like Airbnb VRBOs in Hawaii. I mean, I think you get a lot of out of state owners just buying properties, pumping prices up, and then short term rental landlords are pretty unsophisticated. It's a shit show basically. And like your neighbors get all pissed off and people coming in. It's just I don't see that good for the community. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm just getting old, crotchety.
No, yeah, that's true. And I mean, but then you also have these situations that like I think on the North Shore when you had the big surf events and the big tournaments, I think that allowing the the surfers and the participants to be out there for that short term kind of was a one as a benefit to the community and to the surfing community. Yeah, that might be like a one off, but I've heard always, right, you hear arguments of these situations where could be an exception, or how it's hurting, these new laws are hurting this certain niche or subgroup. So that's the challenge, right? Somebody's gonna get hurt with these big
Yeah,
overarching rules.
yeah. But I don't know. I don't do that type of stuff. So
We
vote with your wallet and your investment dollars, which you decide, I guess.
There you go.
Um, unless you want to buy a beach house, JV, and a short term rental,
That
not something you're
that's
looking into.
that's an option.
Yeah.
I've been
So the only way it can make it work is you run it like truly like a co-op, because you can't lease this thing out to just random people. You're not gonna. The laws are just so difficult if you really want to run it legally, which ideally you want to run a legitimate business and not go around. But the only way to make it work is like get 10, 20, 30 guys together and then have your little calendar and rent it out to those people's friends and family. But then it's like, what a pain in the ass is what I think, like maybe if it was like 5 families, even then it's hard.
It's like a cross between a hui and a timeshare.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like an HOA, we all, that's a nightmare, right?
But then that's the
HOAs.
interesting thing too is the potential appreciation of that play, right? It's to your point. I think you're just parking that money there, money that you're not going to need for the next I don't know how long, and it's like it's better than a timeshare from that standpoint.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if that's the case, just do a good old fashioned lease option with people, right? Have the option, buy the option to buy the price at today, and then get all the upside. And I mean, that's a pain in the butt type of activity too. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I think just go and invest in the mainland, guys. Like that's what I say. I mean, Hawaii's tough. Like you just have so
Yeah,
much international money here, and
yeah,
it's low
yeah.
caps. This is not a cash flow place,
It's not.
quite
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the challenge. I mean, to your point though, like if there's there the investors out there who aren't necessarily looking for the cash flow and they want to park their equity and just not lose the principal, right? So where's the safest place they can park $5 million and just leave it there, you know?
yeah.
But then I
Hawaii,
think
California, and New York,
New York,
best
yeah, yeah.
places.
But then you know, international guys, they have it's a pain in the ass because then you have the tax laws, right? HARPTA and FERPTA, where they withhold all of this money until you file your tax return. So that's kind of a pain. I mean, not too bad because you know once you file your tax return, you'll get what you deserve back. But then it's more pain in
Yeah,
the
but
butt,
those
I
guys
think.
don't care, right? You're
It's true,
talking like 100 million,
right?
$1 billion families, the people
That's
who are
true,
buying these little
right?
$5, $10 million houses here
Yeah,
in Hawaii. They don't care about that stuff.
yeah, yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah, because one of my clients is looking into you talked about Nauru Tower, right? So my one of my clients he's like, oh, you drive by White Nauru Tower at night and you look up and you see, hey, maybe you can count about 20 lights on in the whole building, right? It's like, oh yeah, everyone's still stuck in Japan. That's why.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to be in those kind of places,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like if you can buy in,
yeah,
you got
yeah.
it's like a ghost town because it's. I mean, that's how like Vancouver, BC is. A lot of those nice luxury condos are just uninhabited, so it's kind of
Is it
nice.
Japanese or Chinese? I heard there's a
Chinese
lot
up
of
there,
Chinese. Yeah, yeah, that's what I
yeah.
heard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Hmm. Interesting.
But
But we
anyway,
digress.
digress. So back on track here. Yeah, affordability is just getting more and more difficult. I mean, I think we talk about this all the time. The rich get richer, and the middle class become the lower middle class and have more and more troubles affording stuff. So that's kind of what Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, these pseudo government agencies are kind of out there to lend this government money out. So they're kind of saying that they're predicting less volumes to go out next year as comparison to this year. And I think, just like the home prices, right? 2021 was just a phenomenal year, partly because of pent up demand too. But I think that what I tell people a lot is like, well, it's not like this stuff is slowing down or going backward. Well, it's slowing down, but it's not going backwards.
Right, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's what like a lot of these media sources always try to um, highlight. Like such as this one, right? They say Fannie Mae cuts origination projection and forecast recession in 2023. Oh my God. Well,
Mhm.
like how many times do I hear that, right? I'm sure you hear this all the time. Like, Dean, like I'm worried about the recession, that's coming soon, next year or maybe the year after. No. Um, I don't know. I mean, then I asked, well, have you done anything, dude? Have you even bought anything yet? It's like, well, you got to get started sometime. Um, I've been fearing a recession for the last 14 years. If you would have
Yeah,
acted on that, you would have left out on the biggest 14-year boom cycle ever.
right. They're saying that yeah, like you said, maybe it was that 5 years ago. It's time because when you look at the technical analysis and the timing of that the bull markets don't last this long. So like, I
Yeah,
think a
it
lot of
shouldn't.
people waited on the sidelines for this whole time.
Yeah, it shouldn't. But we're not in a regular economy anymore. The United States just prints money like nothing, and
Yeah,
it can keep going on for like this forever as long as we control the monetary policy. So that's
yeah.
the other theory. So this thing can go for like another 5, 10 years.
Right. To your point, and as soon as they are able to get a hold of the inflation, then um, yeah, like you said, they can go either way, but they do need the dry powder, right? So
And they have a lot of it now. I mean,
yeah,
and pushing interest rates up. I think that's a good thing.
yeah. So we'll see what this tightening does, right? Because now once you start reducing the cash out there, it's gonna be interesting. But they're building up the dry powder if something happens, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, Fannie Mae is projecting that next year that they're going to lend out, approximately, 2022 they did 3 trillion and they're going to 2.8 trillion is their new projection. 2023 forecast was 2.7, now they're looking at 2.4. It's sort of still a very small, slight decline is what they're projecting. Um, it's obviously a lot less than what got dealt out in 2021, $4.5 trillion of debt. But I mean, 2.8 comparison to 4.5. I mean, that's still nothing to laugh about. It's
Yeah.
still growth.
Yeah.
But for the average consumer, it does make a lot of sense why things are slowing down because they're like, oh, if I can lock in why would I want to lock in at a rate of 5% when I had a 3% available to me last year?
Yeah. Yeah. What's going on, and when is it gonna stop?
Yeah. Multifamily net operating income in, increasing. Um, this is net operating basically is like with all the stuff we're saying is how much money you made at the end of the month, um, not including your debt service, of course, but
Yeah,
net
it's cap
operating
rate. It's cap
income.
rates, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like your EBITDA in a business, how much
Yeah.
money you're making. So it's been going up partly because rents have been skyrocketing too, even faster.
That's
What
awesome.
else do you wanna? Oh, the EB-5 thing is back. So the EB-5 is the immigrant investor program where foreign people who are super loaded could just buy their way into America
Hmm.
citizenship, which I don't know if that's quite controversial. Some people like it, but I'm sure Hawaii is going to be it's kind of a gateway city. So
Did the previous administration get rid of that? Is that the one?
it,
Yeah.
it's been gone for a while. Like I
Oh.
mean, I think of maybe a year, a few years, but they just turned it back on.
Huh.
Blackstone, the professional investors out there, they're picking up some Hersha Hospitality Trust. Here's a graph of migration hotspots in Sunbelt states. Now, the best four are Phoenix, Arizona, Miami, Florida, Tampa, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia. And Hawaii's on here, but it's not on a good part of the graph that you want to be on. It is, how should we explain this one, Dean? It is
Trying to see it.
below the line, which I know is not good. It has relatively positive net flow of user migration. That's not what you want per se. But it is well below the line of consumer price index or percentage annual change. There
Hmm.
it is. Surprised they actually thought of us this time and put us on their graph.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That was nice of them. Renewal rates are going up than normal. So more and more people are renewing, probably because here's just my speculation, just guessing. This isn't rocket science, so I'm probably right. Um, the people who normally would opt out of these leases will probably be buying a house to live in. Now they can no more can afford, so they just re-up. That's my theory here. I don't know, but
My
more and more people
yeah.
are renting these days than past.
Um, I think I don't self manage my properties, and typically I let my property managers handle it. For some reason, I have one small unit in Las Vegas, and they tend to ping me every time it's time for renewal. So a few weeks ago, they said, "Oh, we can jack up rents about $150, which is about a 16% increase." And I was like, "Okay, if that's what the market is telling, then let's do it." So they put in the. I have yet to hear if the tenant um extended for another year or not. But yeah, 16% increase was made me pretty happy to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like places like Phoenix, it's like 20 something percent over the
Oh,
last couple years.
yeah,
So I mean, that's I think that's one bookend. That's a high. I think Hawaii, yeah, I think 15% is pretty fair and
yeah.
reasonable.
And that's on
That's
the low side. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. They just they just run the comps and they say, here, Dean, this is, and they offer the amount. So they said 150. I think it was below. I think it was the range was like 150 to like 300, and so they went on the low side of that. I think my tenant's been there for like 3 years already too. So
yeah.
I'm not trying
For
to
you
be a
know for
mean landlord.
but for tenants, it can be tough though, right? Because a lot of them aren't really sophisticated and they can maybe take that stuff personally, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but again, we haven't raised it in a while, so I think this is just kind of catching us up. And
Yeah.
initially I was thinking of selling that property too. So if they were to move, that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's good to just like always be increasing the rents like slightly, like so you take the emotion out of it so they don't think you're a
yeah,
jerk. But it's hey, the inflation went up 3% last year. Well, now it's like 8%. But you just cite something else. It's not my fault, man. It's inflation.
yeah,
We
yeah.
can
To your
blame
point,
Biden, right,
yeah,
or
no,
whatever.
you need to take emotion out of it because I hear so many stories, or even like clients that I get and say, "Oh, can you sell our property? We have a renter that's been in there for 30 years, and yeah, they've been taking advantage of us, and or they inherited the property from their someone, and the other um, ancestor or the parent was just giving the tenant a really good deal, and for like 30 years, and not only does it add to I guess losing out for the family, but then even just the overall maintenance of the property gets bad, right? Because if you were renting out to a someone at an arm's length transaction, then hopefully you would be having a tenant that would be paying the proper amount and maintaining it properly too. So I've had quite a few situations where um, kind of bad, yeah, where they weren't maintaining the property and having to go through a challenging situation to one, get them out, and then two, now we got to get the property ready to sell. And yeah,
So
kind
I
of
say,
challenging.
man, if your net worth is over $1 million, you don't want any dirty properties.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
there's
can
truth
you
to
tell
that.
me any
Yeah,
good reason why debt in your own name, all this legal liability, and feeling bad about bumping people's rent by 2%? I mean, it's like, I don't
and
know.
then you being the bad guy, right? After that,
Yeah, you're always a bad guy. You're always
yeah,
just a rich landlord.
money hungry.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Anyway, moving on. So, seems rent growth has decoupled from apartment demand. So let me try and explain what's going on here.
Yeah, I
So
saw that post. I was curious what that meant.
the size of the labor national. Normally they're saying the labor force petition um, kind of goes hand in hand with, um, or the unemployment kind of goes hand in hand with rents going up and down, up and down. The unemployment rates for March and April represented the lowest value in the last 2 years and was a far cry from the 14.7 rate of April 2020. So, which is a good thing, right? Unemployment is super low right now. The size of the national labor force contracted in April. This development was the reason fewer people were employed in April and March, even as the unemployment rate remained at 3.6%. So unemployment is low, but I guess they're saying rents still went up. Um,
Hmm.
and here also a graph with the PPI and the consumer price index. But then again, like that unemployment rate that everybody watches is all BS anyway, right? Like
Right.
they always
Yeah.
change that voluntary portion. Who knows?
And yeah, it doesn't include the people
They
who have
given up.
yeah, and haven't been in the system for because they haven't been looking for
Yeah.
jobs, and they're just yeah.
And I never really understood the whole premise of like how do you get data for this thing? Like, do you call people and are like, "Whoop, whoop. Hi, are you working right now? Would you like to take a survey? Yeah, I am unemployed. I just got fired 2 weeks. I'd love to take a survey. Like
I
kind of.
think yeah. So that's why to your point, these are the only ones that are in the system, either you know collecting unemployment or applying for it through the system. Like the ones that drop out and get kicked out or stop requesting for it, I think they are not included, I believe.
I don't know.
So
I think you're right. I just don't know, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
who knows? I mean, these numbers all cooked anyway to make people look good, to tell the story.
political.
I mean, it does, but it does seem like the high end, like white collar type of professions, their salaries are skyrocketing now. I mean, if you make 200 grand a year now, it's not much,
Yeah.
apparently.
And I mean, it's great too because of the whole remote working thing, right? So you don't have to be in the Bay Area to make Bay Area amounts, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. So that's
and
kind
you don't
of
need a college education.
that's yeah, another. You can get a scholarship for gaming.
I guess. Or I mean, or you can just be a sales guy or like an operations person. Operations. You don't need no college degree with that. You just need to be a good cog score and like not a dummy. But
Hardworking.
yeah, but I don't know. Investing in real estate's pretty simple and easy. But here's that other. This is the graph of the blue is the net absorbed units. So that's like the new stuff coming online. Like if as they're building more properties for people to live in, and then the average effective rent changes is still going up.
Oh wow, so that's a good thing for existing inventory owners. Is that am I reading that properly?
Yeah, like I mean, basically it's like there's not enough stuff coming online to
Yeah,
satisfy the demand.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Got
there's kind of the build back better swing set, little bit of humor.
it.
Which means we're getting to the kind of the end here. The
uh,
last several slides here. Arbor reports these different market dynamics causing more renters to consider delaying their home ownership due to rising costs of home ownership, tighter mortgage underwriting standards, shifting attitudes towards lifestyle renting. Are you working with first-time home buyers anymore? Are you guys doing any of those guys? Or
I am actually. I do have some, and you know, I had a few. I had one that were looking for new construction, so that was good news. I got a couple into some new construction on the west side as well as the reserved um, stuff in Kakaako that we talked about too. So that's kind of exciting. Um, I think we talked about Ulana before and that reserved housing in Kakaako. My understanding is after the big lottery, they actually still have inventory for those units. So if I was gonna do, that's what I should actually talked about in today, but one of my next YouTube videos, I was going to talk about the what's left or in terms of inventory in the reserved housing over in Kakako, the Ulana at Ward Village.
have you heard of Park Lane 2?
I did not. I don't have any specifics on it, but
Okay, report back next month.
okay. Park Lane 2, got it.
I'd like to know. Um,
Okay, is that the one we're gonna do the cohort one?
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
And then, so finally ending here. So this is Joe Zindel. He's basically the chief investment officer behind Blackstone. So he's the guy who Blackstone kind of put as their head guy in terms of investment. And some of his quotes here. Um, yeah, he's saying, well, right now it's quite unaffordable, almost as bad as in 2007. Yet he believes a crash is unlikely due to the major differences. First, most homeowners aren't using their homes like ATMs, like how they did back in 2007. that caused 2008. That caused so many people to go upside down. The value of what they owed was greater than the value of their home. Today, people's homes have gone up maybe a quarter, maybe even more than that in the past several years, and they're not quite tapping that equity. I mean, the smart investors are, they're getting that money out in HELOCs or refinancing and deploying and buying more assets but hopefully that cash flow. But that's not what the average person is doing. Um,
Yeah.
says historically housing ends up being more highly correlated to labor markets than it is mortgage rates. He says as long as the jobs markets remains relatively healthy, I think housing will as well, which we've kind of talked about how we're in a healthy job market today. He said you might see home prices generally flatten out. You may have pockets of weakness where the home prices in some regions might fall. But the idea of having a national and prolonged drop in housing as the economy eventually rolls over, I think is still a relatively low probability.
Yeah.
So more importantly, these suckers at Blackstone are buying up pretty much anything they can find. So that's what I like. I'm not a huge fan of those economists, Dean, because they don't have any money and they don't do anything with their little money, right? I want to follow what these pros do. This Joe Zindel guy does.
Follow the smart money, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least they put their money where their mouth is, at least,
Yeah.
as opposed to the weatherman just predicting the weather and he doesn't go outside.
Right. Random question: Are you having challenging times in terms of like financing deals or getting
Um,
equity?
so like, here's what's been happening. I think a lot of like the big interest rates are come up, and then I think a lot of the big institutional players that move the markets, just like in any other industry, right, have kind of put a pause on their buying. So it's kind of created maybe potentially a little bit of a good buying window, a seller's market within a buyer's market, or a buyer's market within the seller's market. Um, Eventually, those guys have to come back into the game because they have to deploy money, right? Like guys like Blackstone, they got to keep deploying cash. They got to keep buying large apartments or whatever they're buying.
Because
So
their investors are requiring returns, right?
well,
Is
their
that what it is?
investors are just dumb retirement money, right? And dumb retirement money doesn't really need returns. They just need to churn the fees generated by just placing the damn capital. You don't need returns. You just need to place the capital, and this is what feeds the whole financial planner sphere, right? So these large institutions, they just have to deploy capital. They just have to buy shit. And that's why that's why I'm saying they're gonna come back online eventually. But right now we're kind of in that pause period.
Hmm.
But there are situations just like that's why I asked you on like the residential front here in
Hmm.
Hawaii. You've seen like deals drop under contract for the lending going up. Now I haven't seen I haven't really personally seen any deals fall out of contract due to people getting us loan proceeds, and that's just anecdotes on my part in my sphere that I see. But um, yeah, I do see that like prices have just skyrocketed, market appreciation have just skyrocketed, and um, yeah, it's good to be in the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, like to your point too, like tapping into all of this lazy equity in my real estate. That's kind of what I'm trying to. That's what I'm doing now too in terms of my current activities. Yeah, so that trying to maximize the balance sheet so that you have dry powder. And I was just thinking about that too. What if when there's a correction on the say the stock side, or did it happen already, right? And then maybe dump dump 50K or I don't know whatever into Amazon or
Oh,
Apple
I'm not
or
doing any of that stuff.
I
Yeah.
know you're not good, but I'm just thinking like if I mean yeah, ideally I'd prefer to throw it in on the real estate side and potentially ideally syndications, but if we're seeing these deals kind of drying up because either the margins are getting tighter, the cap rates are getting tighter, or the financing. So if the rates go up too much and it creates a squeeze, then what is the next play, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the interest rates don't really impact value add projects, right? Like think about it like a house flipper. A house flipper is like an extreme example, but like a house flipper doesn't give a rip what their interest rate is. He'd be paying 10, 20, 30% on his money because he's going to value add the project and make a boatload of money and just pay off the hard money lender or the interest rate on the deal. I mean, it's not, if you're doing value add, it's probably not as extreme as a house flipper, but you know that interest rate that means less. Whereas if you're a buy, hope, and pray investor, like how we were when we first started to buy these turnkeys, it was all buy, hope, and pray. You're hoping that the property is going to go up in value. There's no value add. I mean, I wasn't doing any value add. Therefore, when you fudge that interest rate up half a point, you lose $50, $60 a month in cash flow. That's why it's a huge deal in the buy, hope, and pray model, which is still
Right.
better than keeping your money in your house still. So if you're doing the buy, hope, and pray model out there, keep doing it. It's still better, but you know, the interest rates really impacts you. But if you can do value add, then that's the game changer.
What do you call it? The simple passive cash flow evolution of investing? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, like I mean, this is what I'm kind of believing. Like, unless you're going out and creating value, you you know, you're just you're not swimming fast enough to get away from the wave, I think.
But there must be some kind of squeeze, right, on the interest rate side. It must squeeze the margins down somehow. Or are you telling me if the interest there must be interest rate risk in these syndication deals? No.
Well, I think the trouble is like if interest rates go up in theory, and what'll probably happen eventually is the cap rates will also go up, right? The cap rate to interest rate differential is where you make your yields. But I think the problem why cap rates are compressed is large institutions really like multifamily for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
So there's a kind of an excess of money that should normally be normalized in like say office space or shopping
Oh, okay.
malls,
Okay.
or maybe they're getting away from the stock market in general and coming to real hard assets. You know, who would have known, right? Like I think
Okay.
that's what keeping that natural, you know, going up with the interest rates down, which to me validates the business plan that these large smart money is doing that. But I mean,
Got
that's
it.
like industrial. I think industrial has like some of the best yields right now. But then again, you know, industrial it can be disrupted, right? Like if Amazon creates some kind of phenomenal supply chain shortening thing so that you don't need warehouses, your warehouse drops in value.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Okay,
I
that
don't know.
helps. Appreciate
I
that.
don't
No,
know. We don't
no.
know what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, if you think of something better to invest in that people need, I'm all
I don't know.
ears, right?
You syndicators always come up with these really interesting ideas. So I'm waiting to hear your next best thing
Well, you
outside
gotta
of
find
the
things that you can add value to,
right, right,
right?
right, right.
Whether it's a e-commerce website or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, real estate is kind of primitive in a way, and it's backed by a hard asset. You get good tax benefits, but I'm sure there's other things out there that people need a lot that you'll need
no,
in a recession.
no more fun coffee farms in Panama. Or where were we? I forgot that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you might need coffee in tough times. I know that's what you think, right? You have time to think about like what does really well in really bad times. Netflix kind of at one point, but now everybody no people don't like Netflix right
How
now.
about
Because
you guys never looked into like the medical marijuana or anything like that?
oh, so yeah, so the American marijuana is kind of filled with like druggies. It's kind of a
Oh,
joke, but it kind of is. It's kind of a shadier type of thing because you don't get access to really good lending because in some states the big banks just won't lend to you. So it's kind of like an aftermarket kind of a lending, um, and it's a business, and I don't know. At one time, I think like 2020 or 2000, no, 2018. I think that was when there was a lot of traction. It's like this is a growing industry, right? We got to get in now. But it's just I think in hindsight, that was just a fad. And if you got in early, you probably stepped on a landmine with some kind of, fake it till you make it operator. Because there's no collateral with that stuff.
Oh, so interesting. Yeah.
But
Well,
it's a good idea for like an emerging industry. I give you that.
oh, well, I'll be waiting to hear for your next latest and greatest outside of uh, the
But
apartment
budget
complex.
wine, or I don't know.
Y-
That's it.
Yeah.
We all know that's a race to the bottom, right? You never want to be in a product that's kind of your budget. I guess you always want it to be a brand play, a value add on the brand side. So I don't know. I mean, the trouble is all these simple things are done by large institutions.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta find out what they're doing and then scale down to that area that they're not playing in, right? Isn't that what the apartment complex thing was?
Yeah, like in anything, you have to find what the big guys are doing and somehow try and do it on a smaller level. But the
Because
reason
in
why the
theory,
big
that's what
guys aren't
turnkey is,
doing it,
right? That's what turnkey
yeah,
is if you think about it. The guys that are
but
doing that do the flips. That's like a version, a itty bitty version of these
yeah,
apartment syndication.
or like a great example is like like Exxon Mobil, Shell, all these big oil drilling companies will buy the best areas. They'll have the best equipment, and they'll just go in there and just do their sucker straws and just pump oil. Whereas the smaller operators get the shitty like oil fields, and they have to really work for that, and they have to frack for the oil. That's a controversial topic, but
Yeah.
that's the only way the small guys can compete. They don't get the pick of the litter areas. They can still make a lot of money, but boy, is it a lot of work. Yes.
Maybe gold mining. How about gold mining?
I think that's been done already.
Too much reality TV on what I forgot. There's those. Anyways,
Yeah, I don't know. We'll think about it. We'll come
sounds
back
good.
at you guys with some more money making ideas next month. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, submit it over to us, and then we'll see you guys next month. Bye.
See ya. Bye.